So the NXT takeover event, or not takeover anymore, but In Your House comes at us this coming weekend. It'll be Saturday prior to the WWE Hell in a Cell on the Sunday. It is they're one of their premier events on the WWE Network and Peacock, of course, for our friends in the US. So today we have on the show Matthew Ederer. He's one of the young guns from the snmeradio group. Matthew, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well. Thank you for having me, man. Young gun, approaching my 35th birthday rapidly. Might need to change the nickname soon.
Nice. Well, happy early birthday.
We still got a month to go, but yeah, no, it's a big old milestone hitting me like a ton of bricks pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure. So looking at the NXT card, well, before we actually get into the card, the concept of the event is In Your House. And of course, this is a concept taken from the mid 90s during the new generation era of pro wrestling. Were you following at the time?
Yeah, I was 1995. I was, I guess, 8 years old, right? But I was already way into wrestling, huge WWE fan. And yeah, I did used to get a bootleg VHS taped off of an illegal box of every pay-per-view the day after from a guy who lived in my small town. So yes, I saw all the In Your Houses, was a big fan. I enjoyed the cheesy concept, and it was at a time when you're 8 years old, all wrestling is cool. You know what I mean? You think Diesel or Psycho Sid are the best wrestlers in the world. Going back and watching some of those old In Your Houses now, they're pretty rough. Some of them are pretty rough.
Understood. I mean, when they first reintroduced the concept, it was during the first year of COVID. Of course, the first couple of them were pretty good. They were still under the old NXT Black and Gold banner. Nowadays, I think this is the first one under the 2.0. So that said, how do you feel like the modern era has measured up to those classic In Your House events of past?
Well, yeah, see, it's interesting. So the old In Your Houses were so hit and miss that I kind of feel like the last couple in the Black and Gold brand were actually like better, among the best, you could say. Although nothing has touched Canadian Stampede, which I feel like is the gold standard of the In Your House brand. But yeah, no, actually, like for the most part, this event has delivered via NXT. So it'll be interesting to see if 2.0 can keep that up.
Yeah, and speaking of the 2.0, I mean, we're now close to a year almost of this new 2.0 edition of NXT. What would you say your overall impression has been of the rebranding thus far?
Well, I mean, it's a necessary evil. I get what they're trying to do, but it's made the show much worse. It's made my enjoyment of the show go into the absolute toilet, right? But at the end of the day, I understand what they're trying to do. Now, having said that, like the logic behind the changes were they're going to create wrestlers who are ready made to go on the main roster, who Vince McMahon knows and who kind of are already made in the WWE mold, right? But they're still changing everything about everyone. They're still changing Marcel Barthel's name to Ludwig Kaiser. They just changed LA Knight, you know what I mean? So it's weird. What are they really accomplishing with this 2.0, you know? Like I don't even get it at all.
Yeah, no, understood. And it's weird too that they're changing these little things here and there, but under their own umbrella. Like they're all still representing the same company. So I don't really get it. Like, why wouldn't you just change it right at the start so that people get used to the idea instead of changing it on NXT and then changing it again by the time they get to the main roster?
Right. Yeah. Changing it right at the start would make sense, Blaine. You'd think they would do it that way, but they just can't get out of their own way sometimes.
Okay, so we're going to start talking about the ongoing feud. First of all, one of the matches added, I believe just recently, is the six-man tag. It'll be Santos Escobar and Legado del Fantasma, one of Boris's favorite teams, against Tony D'Angelo and what he's calling the family. Now it'll be a six-man tag. I'm assuming some kind of stipulation is going to be added to that. I don't know if it's official yet, as I said, but I've heard there will be a six-man on the show. What are your thoughts, firstly, about this heel versus heel dynamic?
Yeah, it's really weird. I was expecting one of them to be pushed as the baby face, and they really haven't been. I guess you could argue of the two groups, Legado would be, but Elektra Lopez, for example, is clearly a heel in the women's division.
Right.
So it's really hard to say. I guess it is heel versus heel. I'm impressed with Tony D'Angelo's character work. The character itself is cheesy. It's right out of 1995 In Your House, but he does an excellent job with it. He's leaned all the way into it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just spending too much time with Boris. Maybe it's his propaganda, but I like Legado a lot too.
You know what it kind of reminds me of is the feud that they used to have between the Bariquas and the DOA and the Nation, something similar to that, where it's a very controversial topic to broach, I guess. But I mean, it kind of like in that sense, do you feel like it kind of divides the audience? Like kind of you're a sports fan, Matt. So like when you're cheering for your favorite sports teams, especially with FIFA, you typically go for the country that your team is representing. Do you feel like it's the same kind of thing here, where the Italians are obviously going to side with D'Angelo, and then the Mexicans or the Hispanic audience will side with Legado?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of that, but that makes sense. That's probably part of why they're doing it, and I can definitely see that kind of occurring, like it being split down those lines. Yeah, it's a good call for sure.
Mm-hmm. So another heel versus heel rivalry that has been building is the one between the Creed brothers and the team, I believe, formerly known as Pretty Deadly. I'm not sure if they're still known as Pretty Deadly, but they did change their singles names. That one is for the NXT tag team titles. Now, to me, you have a team like the Creed brothers who are kind of being positioned as the baby faces in this feud, but especially given the tension lately between them and Roddy. But you have these like Neanderthal looking meathead jocks that are typically, like, if you're up to date on pop culture, like you watch shows like Riverdale or even recently with Stranger Things, the jocks are not usually presented as the good guys. They're more of the jerks. So do you agree with this, or do you think it should be the opposite?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's very clearly that these jocks are the good guys. Like, I think it might have even officially been a babyface turn when Roderick Strong tried to interfere in a match. I think it was against the Viking Raiders, and the Creed brothers. Yeah, and the Creed brothers stopped him from interfering straight up. So I believe that was officially a babyface turn. They are now fighting for good and justice. And it is kind of weird, but I look at them like Steiner brothers. You know, they're basically the poor man's Steiner brothers. So they're the ass kicking babyface tag team that, in the way that Brock Lesnar is a babyface now, it's kind of hard to just boo him because he's fun and he's wacky and he throws people around. What's not to love, right?
Yeah. And now you mentioned the thing, and I brought it up as well with Roderick Strong. There were internal beef. There were kind of like domestic issues there. Do you find that has kind of taken precedence over this feud over the tag titles?
Yeah, for sure. They're talking about it more than they are the tag team title match. But I think they're building it so strongly because it will be the excuse for the Creed brothers to not win this match. Pretty Deadly doesn't need to lose these titles yet. So they're going to continue holding them. And it's going to be because Roderick Strong screws them over. So I feel like that's why they are spending so much time on it.
Right. And of course, you've probably heard the rumors, as have I, Roderick Strong could be on his way out at some point, possibly in the near future. What do you think that means for the future of the Creeds?
Well, I do think the Creeds have more of a shot on the main roster than Roddy does, and that's probably the issue, right? Like, the Creeds will be kind of fast tracked, I feel like, and I don't think Roderick Strong will ever go to the main roster. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to be left of Diamond Mine. They might be the end of that group, but the Creeds themselves will be fine.
Right. Yeah, and especially because Ivy Nile is now doing stuff in the UK. I believe she's in this program with Nico Satomura for the UK title. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. Speaking of Ivy Nile, she's another woman on the roster, and the women's tag belts are also on the line as Toxic Attraction. Of course, the champions will be challenged by Kaden Carter and what she is now known as Katana Chance. So I've had this issue for a while now. And it's not just a WWE problem, but one that I find extends to all of wrestling. And that's that I find it extremely hard to take a team seriously if they do not have a team name. Like, to me, that suggests that a breakup is in their future. And any thoughts on that?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I definitely think they could stand to get a name, Kaden and Katana. But yeah, it just makes things more formal, more fun in a way. But I don't think, I haven't sensed that a breakup is coming. Having said that, it's WWE, man. Like, they change their mind as the wind blows, so it might be coming. Who knows?
For sure. And of course, you also brought up before we started recording here, you brought up the other NXT title defense, which will be Mandy Rose defending against Wendy Chu. Now, what have you thought, firstly, of Mandy Rose's title run thus far and her new character that she's developed?
I think she's really good as this new character. Reminds me a lot of Sable's heel character from 1999. It's kind of a new spin on that. Like, I think I'm the hottest girl in the world, therefore I deserve to be women's champion kind of character. It's like, it's an interesting thing. It's not completely unique in wrestling, but I think she's done a good job with it. She's still, like, if you look at the list of everyone who's held the women's title, God bless her, she's the worst women's champion. Yeah, she is. She just is. But I don't think she's doing a bad job, you know?
Right. Within NXT, you mean?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then of course, Wendy Chu is somebody, when you look at her character, like, it's somebody that definitely fits the mold of the old school in your house type gimmicks.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a gimmick like this holds up in modern day pro wrestling?
No, I don't really understand the Wendy Chu character. I don't have much time for it at all. I think she is an incredible performer, and you can tell that's why they want to push her and give her all these chances. But the character that they have come up with is just terrible. It's just like it's a 60-year-old man's attempt to try to win over the kids. You know what I mean? And it's just completely disjointed. Doesn't really make sense. You don't understand her motivations or where she gets her things or why she's doing anything that she's doing. So yeah, I don't really like it. But I think the performer behind the character is actually incredible. Wendy Chu is really, really good. And I hope that they figure something better out for her. She's not going to win the title though here. I don't think. That would be surprising.
Yeah, to me, like, it kind of suggests that it might be their answer to kind of like an Orange Cassidy type deal.
Yeah.
And Orange Cassidy, of course, is a character in itself. But this is even further extension of that. Like, this is just like going farther and farther down the rabbit hole, kind of. And she's like basically playing a character that's like a modern day, like the Red Rooster of modern day gimmicks.
That's interesting. Yeah, it is that cheesy. It is that bad and weird.
Yeah. Okay, so we also have sorry. So given what happened recently with Sasha and Naomi, I actually had an idea of, instead of having this bogus tournament, which, let's face it, I mean, like, how many teams really are there to compete over these women's tag belts to begin with? But why not just make the NXT titles the main titles and have the champions just defend on all three brands?
I think that was originally, that was going to be the plan, right? And I feel like for some reason WWE got cold feet on allowing their women's champions to go back to NXT to and fro. So I love that idea. I hope they do that. I think they should, but I don't think they will, but I think they should.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would definitely make sense. So they probably won't do it. But so two more women will also be on this card in the finals of the breakout tournament. It'll be Roxanne Perez, the former Roxy, against Tiffany Stratton, who is playing a character very similar to Xia Brookside in NXT UK. And unlike Stratton, people actually know and are familiar with Xia Brookside's father, Robbie Brookside. What do you think of this, like, them using the same character within the same company, basically?
I think it's just more proof that the left hand never knows what the right hand is doing, but it's not that big a deal. Although it is kind of hilarious because there are two of the exact same character. But yeah, one's overseas. They never really interact. So I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's just funny to see.
That's true. So given this match, Roxanne against Tiffany Stratton, are you surprised that this is the final match?
Well, yes, just insofar as Tiffany wasn't in the tournament originally. I think it's a pretty decent match on paper. Tiffany is rapidly improving, and Roxanne is, I mean, at worst, the third best wrestler in the women's division. If Io Shirai is still in NXT, she's probably up there. Saray is probably up there. Maybe Alba Fire, Kaylee Ray, but Roxanne is right there with all of them. She's as good. or better. So I think like Roxanne has to win this tournament, and I think she's the right person to get probably the best match of Tiffany's career up to this point out of her. So
Absolutely. And then, of course, Cameron Grimes versus Carmelo Hayes should be a great one for the North American title. We've seen these guys have fantastic matches in the past, especially the three-way. I really liked the three-way with them and Solo Sikoa, who I actually thought it was Solo Sikoa in this match instead of Carmelo Hayes. I don't know, did he get injured or do you know what happened there?
no, I think they're just setting up Solo to face the winner, who is probably going to be Carmelo. I actually think this match is on the poster of In Your House. I actually think they might main event the show with this, especially because the men's title match has such a weird stipulation. I think they might do the thing where they put the men's title match in the middle of the show, and this match is the main event. They get 20 minutes, and I think they're going to tear the house down. I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah, that could be very interesting. That's a good point. Do you anticipate that the loser of this match will be called up right away?
I kind of do, because I think Cameron Grimes is losing. I think Grimes is going to lose this title, and I think sadly for everyone, he will be in the 24/7 hunt, the 24/7 title hunt in like 2 weeks.
I mean, they haven't really been paying that close attention to the 24/7 title lately, so I hope you're wrong there.
Me too.
And then, of course, it's rounding out the card is the big one for the NXT World Title. It'll be Braun Breaker turning back the challenge of Joe Gacy. Is it me, or is Gacy Bray Wyatt 2.0?
No, it is not you. That is exactly correct. He is he's like Bray Wyatt with like a dash of Kevin Owens, but not enough Kevin Owens. Way too much Bray Wyatt.
Right.
Yeah, I have negative interest in this match. It has hurt Braun Breaker's career. It has hurt Joe Gacy's career. This feud sucks. I'm sure the match will be decent, but the first match they had wasn't even very good. So I don't know. We'll see, man. Like that's part of the reason why I think they're not even going to main event it with this show, is because they have botched the build for this one, in my opinion. This has been bad.
Yeah, and especially it's interesting you mentioned the previous match, because it wasn't anything spectacular. But what even interests me less about this match is that there has been no real development in the story between these two since that first match.
Yeah, right.
It's just been much of the same, like similar to like the Cody and Seth Rollins feud. There's really been no development that warrants a second match.
And it's tough. Like once you start with, I kidnapped and tortured your dad, that's where the feud starts. And then you have to go for 6 weeks. Like, it's just, well, where the heck do you go from there? You know, it's pretty extreme and dumb and completely stupid and a waste of everyone's time.
Exactly. And I brought up the Wyatt comparison too. Like it kind of annoys me. And it's kind of like, it feels like a very an extreme lack of creativity when they have these characters and they release the original and then they just replace the character with somebody new. Like with Pretty Deadly is kind of like a carbon copy of, or an extension of, like Breezango, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes the whole thing feel like an assembly line and the whole thing feel pointless and inorganic. And not that this is something that Vince McMahon cares about. They print money in WWE. But I really feel like once fans can feel like you're lying to them, once fans feel like you're marketing to them, they kind of check out. That's why they checked out on Roman Reigns for years. That's why they checked out on John Cena for years. You know what I mean? And that's not, I mean, Vince McMahon doesn't care about that. Again, he's printing money, but I feel like this is just a very fake, convoluted storyline that no one likes, that they're just pushing on through.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I know that you're not really invested in this storyline or these characters or this feud, but is it time for Joe Gacy to win the belt, do you think?
No, they love this character clearly, so maybe they will put the belt on him, but no, I don't think so. I think Braun Breaker will win clean and hopefully by the grace of God end this feud.
You know, like, having said that, if they did want to continue this feud, that's really the only scenario that I can see doing just that, is if they flip the belt onto Gacy. It kind of provides at least a reason for another match. Not that I particularly want to see one, but I've heard also that Braun Breaker is supposed to be called up by SummerSlam, so it'll be interesting to see where they go here.
Yeah, that does make sense, but man, I hope not. Could you imagine if Joe Gacy wins the NXT title by disqualification? Like, oof.
Uh, I mean, stranger things have happened. We've had champions win titles on a DQ finish
Yeah,
before.
absolutely.
Big Show can attest to that. So
yeah, we've seen it before.
yeah, and so of all you might have already answered this, but of all the matches on the card, which one are you expecting to be match of the night?
Oh, for sure, Grimes versus Haze. It is the one I am most excited for. It would take a disaster in that match or a miracle in another match for it not to be match of the night.
Right. And one last question here before we wrap. Working within the confines, and this is your own opinion, by the way. So working within the confines of the current 2.0 structure, what would you like to see happen in the next year?
Huh. That's a really good question. Just more focus on actual in-ring and less focus on all of the failed ways to hook the youth. You know what I mean? Like the youth will come if you put on an exciting, good product. Don't try to create a Wendy Chu, or don't try to do like a weird sex sells thing with Toxic Attraction. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think they should just get back to basics, but that's not going to happen. They're trying to create sports entertainers, Blaine. So yeah, I'm just shouting into the void there. But that's what I would like to see: a little more focus on simple, basic storytelling and just getting these people fundamentally ready to be pro wrestlers.